Hello, my name's host Eric. I'm the host talking famous people. I'm here with assorted famous people and hosts in the room, including waiting for name, who's one of my very favorite guests, Barry, CJ, JC, Ken, Lorenz, Teacup Noir, and we are privileged this evening to have an ENFJ in attendance. Not something we get a lot of. I do get to talk to Abraham, but I don't know any other ENFJs, and it's nice to be able to talk to Teacup Noir, who has commented on some videos in the past. And so we thought we'd ask her some ENFJ specific questions. So in the first two cognitive functions that in the conscious stack according to MBTI for Teacup Noir and also according to Socionics are FE followed up by NI. Now this is the inverse or the reverse order of the INFJs, which have NI in the first slot and FE in the second slot. So as an FE Dom, I know that Abraham is somebody who is very aware of when he sees like a homeless person or something like that. And I would like to get a sense of how it feels to walk around in the world through a framework of other people's emotions as your primary sort of first experience of things. Can you just sort of talk about that for a bit?
Oh, well, that's such a great question. Yeah, I feel like most of my life, I'm drawn to like thinker types, so I think a lot of times I'm explaining this exactly what you asked, which is funny you ask it. But I know, like, I definitely am affected by kitten, animal videos, like anything cute within a 5-mile radius. I know where it is, and I'm probably feeling for it. So like I kind of like it's a weakness and a strength because I feel like it allows me to kind of gauge situations and like the emotional temperature, the pressure. What to expect, like what's coming next, and I can usually like avoid things if I don't want to be involved, or I can know how to talk to somebody to say like just the right thing, make them feel better, or make them feel better about me, and sometimes most of it's withdrawing too, like not pushing things with people with different personality types, like just dealing the difference between like a boss and a secretary, even like I talk to probably one of the two. On and off throughout the day, and just like for me, I'm very conscious that I'm switching between like what one's feeling because they're allowed to vote, they're allowed to have their space, they're in charge, and the other one's kind of like trying to manage things and hold their emotions and kind of be more receptive, I guess, a receptive position. So I guess like people's duties, their functions, like for me, I pick up on what they're feeling about how they're doing that. And
hierarchy stuff. So that's interesting. You said they're allowed to emote. I'm very emotive in my capacity at my debate business, and I can think of on a few occasions when I've been really upset, and my unfair modality is to demand of like Abraham in particular that he sort of jump around at my emotions or something, which is awful, right? It's an awful thing to do, and that's not my normal operating procedure. Normally I would hope that I'd encourage everybody on the team to emote all they want, but it's a very you wouldn't hear a T say that probably, right? As a field of data in which to plot points, so to speak. Let me see if I can get somebody else to ask a question, if anybody else has a question they'd like to ask you, so that we move along the cognitive function stack or add some more information here.
I don't... can I
go ahead? Go ahead, Ken.
I don't have a question quite yet, but I did want to comment. Earlier in the previous video, you talked about that fourth function and how you felt that it was, or you thought that it was like that function where you'll take infinite help. For the ENFJ, I think that would be introverted thinking. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. Introverted thinking. And she had mentioned that she likes to be around like thinker types and stuff like that. I just thought there was a commonality there. That's sort of like infinite help. Like she's always.
Can you explain how that plays out then? Teacup Noir, do you agree with that? You like infinite help in TI, or would you disagree with that, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I dated somebody that I don't know his typing, but I'm pretty sure he was E and ET something, and I think he was so in tune with my thought process that, and I was allowing him to do that, like finish my sentences, or kind of like I would hold back, and then he would be like, well, you're feeling this way, and he'd kind of level with me a little bit and kind of convinced me, actually, through his, I guess, like, thinking and argumenting style, like, to basically be with me and be in a relationship. And I kind of was like, okay, I like what you're saying, and so I relied on that a lot. And then when it came time for me to, like, explain my side more, I didn't feel, when there's an imbalance, I guess I should say, then that's, I usually find a way to, like, I don't know, bring it back to a balance. I don't know if that ends.
Did that relationship end? Did you end that relationship?
I did. Yeah.
So what ultimately caused you guys to not be compatible?
Because I think that, well, I think there was a lot of other factors that are going into it, but I do think that I didn't balance my work life as best as I could, and I think that the person had been previously hurt, they were divorced, and I think like they were trying to do everything to like manage me, kind of from the outside, everything they could to like figure out my emotions or figure out what I was going to do next or something. And because I couldn't, I guess I couldn't meet them halfway. So I think it was just a maturity factor. The person's super dear to me, and I still keep in touch with them and just, wish good thoughts for them and things. But, so yeah.
Do you think that that you supplemented his fourth slot, which was FE?
Very well could have. Very well could have.
Because I feel when there's an FE and I'm doing something, I'm with another FE or someone who's got it in the secondary. I normally let them, if it comes onto a topic, which it often does if you've got an FE near you, which is to do, with FE type things, it is really nice to have somebody there who can smoothly deal with them. And I'm guessing that, is it's extrovert. It's that's where I'd love to see that. But I'm wondering if he ever let you do that or not.
Yeah, I felt like, okay, so here's an example. One time we went to a bar together, and it was shortly after we started seeing each other, and we had just a really great, like, blissful, like, first couple, like, little while together, and, we, in our own world, we were, like, perfect. But then as soon as we went into public, I think he just wanted to, like, be the person that orders the drink or talks to the bartender, and, I mean, I thought both of us could do that, and I was kind of trying to, like, chat the bartender up, and it was a female, so I was, trying to just talk to her and be, like, chatty, and I think it, like, threw him off completely, and then I was confused, and the other person, I just felt like, okay, but I felt like I was, charming enough to let it pass. Like, I really like using silences with, T-types at times, when it's, like, let the pause happen, and then, move on,
Yes.
let the person have their bearings kind of thing. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
The way I experience, like when there's an FE user, when they're using their FE in a situation, it actually allows me to just do whatever mode I was in. It allows me to continue in that mode, and that's why I really appreciate that when somebody uses that. But that's a note on what we were speaking about earlier.
Necro.
Thank you so much. I think you feel very like good. I've tried to be socially conscious,
Necro, does your microphone being on indicate you'd like to say something?
Oh no, it was just on because it's always on. No,
Okay.
It was on. Yeah.
Yeah. So some people turn it on and off, like to indicate when they want to talk. So I didn't notice whether you had it on in general or not. Anyway, okay. Well, let's talk about SE. So SE is in your third slot, then Teacup Noir, and that would mean that, according to my notion of it, you probably are a get shit done kind of a person. That additionally, you probably are pretty good, but not great, about some sort of exercise program or dietary program.
Definitely.
Is that true?
Definitely. I'm like the epitome of yo-yo diet lady. I'm like totally bizarre, insane. Like I have regiments, I do things. I did Whole 30, where it's like no dairy, no cheese, and whining about it the whole time, but I damn will not stop until I finish it. I'm very determined, bound and determined. Whenever.
Why? Why?
Why?
Why would you do such a thing?
Oh, probably because I have that typical, I don't know, you got a health consciousness, I guess.
Because you got
I don't know.
SE in the third slot.
It's peer pressure.
But see, this is what I think. This is what I think, though. I understand you got SE in the third slot, so that would make sense to me to go and do, like, oh, I feel like I need to go out and get some exercise, so I'm gonna go jogging or something like that. Like I picture SE third slot people doing that kind of stuff. That makes sense. But I just don't buy any of that dietary shit. I think it doesn't matter what you eat.
You know what though? I think that there's something to be said for not being reasonable. Like I said, it all comes back to balance. But I also believe that nutrition, like the type of stuff in American diet, what you'll find is just so bad for you. It just really is. And I could give you links. I mean, That's a whole nother topic. I know. I don't like hearing people tell me about it, but once they start, I could debate vegans about veganism and go from both sides. Not very well, but from a few places, but I could definitely talk about it for hours.
It's so important. You're right there. I don't know why Eric's suggesting it's not as a joke.
Not a joke. It's not a joke. I am literally telling you, it doesn't fucking matter what you eat. Okay?
It really does. You have to get the right macronutrients to start off with.
You need a certain minimum stuff, right? You need your various vitamins and minerals and your calories, okay? But beyond that, it doesn't matter what you eat.
Yeah, going back to kind of what you were talking about, I guess from my perspective, having SE in the fourth slot, I guess to me it's like I definitely relate to what she's talking about. It's just less driven. For me, I find myself a bit more prone to lull into patterns where I'm eating more junk food and stuff like that, but I've definitely had periods of time where it's like I'm exercising every day, I'm only eating certain kinds of food, I'm only eating at certain times of the day, stuff like that.
It's 98% genetics, 1% behavior, and 1% happenstance, and 0.00001% diet.
I don't completely agree with you, Eric, but I do think you're onto something at least, because I have friends who they'll try to watch what they eat and they'll just gain weight, and it's like a really sore spot for them, and it's like I just shovel in whatever and I've barely gained 9 pounds in like 6 months.
I lived with a very thick lady, right, for a long time, and I can tell you for sure I ate way more than she did. I never gained a fucking pound. She would change her diets and it never changed her weight regardless. And
what's your background?
What's my background?
Yeah. Like your genetics.
My what?
You don't have Native American?
Am I Native American? No. No, my race is famous person. For a while, I thought I was African American. Then I realized I was Chinese. I was Chinese for a day or two. Then I realized I was Mexican. Finally, I realized I'm a famous person.
Cool.
Well, JC, yeah. I mean, if you deny yourself basic needs like fats and proteins, then you're going to starve yourself to death. Sure, I get that.
No, I kind of agree with JC there too. When I was on a sort of program, I did definitely lose weight.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. If you don't eat enough food to be full, then you will lose weight. That's true. That's called
I was
starving
eating a lot
yourself.
of food. I just wasn't snacking during the day. I was eating at specific times. I'd still eat fun stuff like pot roast and whatnot. It's not like I was outside eating the grass, Eric. You're making it sound so worse than it is.
You know what? Can I ask you something though? That's interesting.
Dinner, gummy worms, and that's right, combos. These are pretzels with fake cheese filling in them. They're delicious.
When I worked in a warehouse, those were great because they make me poop less.
And a bag of chips. So
sorry, Teacup.
Now, so look.
Teacup was going to ask something.
Can we agree though that this is more healthy than vegan food?
No, we really can't.
We can agree that's more healthy than a Lunchable. That could be like a famous person Lunchable. You got your sugar for your brain cells.
No, but Teacup, you were going to say something. And
I don't know if that has to do with, like, we were talking about earlier, somebody said something about NI being, like, unconscious, right? I still don't know if I understand that all the way, but like I don't know if that maybe this like case in point, like the whole dieting thing. Like I do tell people I'm a yo-yo dieter if they ask, but like I think it is about balance, and I think all that's true. But there are times where I'm like I have cravings for strange things. Like I'll be like I need ice cream and I need it now, or I need this, and I need that. So. But I definitely moderate that. But not always. So, and there's times also I don't like eating too, where I'll just be like, okay, I'm gonna eat like light all day, or light for the next 3 days or something. So, I find that hard to manage now. So I don't know if that is, one of the problems.
Yeah, I find, I don't know how this is for an ENFJ per se, but for me, I notice sometimes I'll overeat, specifically because if I don't, sometimes I forget to. If I make a habit of overeating, then my stomach's typically right on time, like, hey, you need to eat something. But if I make a habit of not eating, like before I've woken up at 5:30 in the morning, and then I'll start to be like, oh, I'm kind of hungry, and I'll look at the clock, and it's like about 3 p.m.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah.
See,
Like
I just
if I'm working hard.
I don't find that I feel any different based on what I eat after I eat, There's no data that suggests to me that it matters whether I eat a steak or a salad or a sandwich or whatever. Right? I feel the same. After I'm done eating, I feel full. I feel fine. I feel good. I don't feel like, maybe sometimes I'll feel super full and I'll feel heavy for a little while.
I've gone through, wait, what's that? Someone asking something?
Oh, well, yeah, sometimes for a little while.
I know for me, I've gone through those sort of, as Teacup stated, like yo-yo type diets. Only for me, it's not yo-yo diets, it's yo-yo on a diet, off a diet specifically. But I feel like I've gone through that pattern enough to notice that it's not necessarily with specific meals, it's over a longer period of time that I notice if I make a habit of drinking too much pop. Typically a lot more dehydrated. Like I can tell the difference when I am on a diet. And Eric, you know what? I can see that you're becoming slightly uncomfortable. You don't want to integrate it into yourself that you should be on a diet.
No, I'm uncomfortable because I can't decide which of two jokes to make.
Okay.
I think we need someone who's heavy TE in here to actually give us some evidence. But I studied biochemistry, and I can tell you that I'm wrong.
Who's wrong? Who's wrong?
You are, Eric. Diet is important. Very important.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
For long-term effect, it is. Like, even if you don't, you don't need to diet to, lose weight. You can diet for other things. Like, you can diet so you can, be more focused and stuff.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I agree that diet matters, but I will argue the following thing. That it's individually specific. So that for me, what I need to eat is a lot of fat and hamburgers and stuff like that because I have a really high metabolism.
That's
the only way I'm going to feel adequately full, and it's the only way my food's going to taste good also. And so that's important for me because that's what my body requires. Now, somebody who doesn't require as much fat and protein, maybe they have a different dietary requirement. I don't know. Like you guys said, my body sometimes tells me eat a salad because I just feel like I need some vegetables or something. Or eat a grapefruit because I feel like I need some vitamin C. There are obviously some basic needs your body has, but other than that, what your body does is this. With whatever food you put in it, it takes what it needs, it stores a certain amount of it as fat, and it poops out the rest. That's it. It's a really simple process, guys. It doesn't involve any this is a carrot, so I'm going to treat it differently, or this is a hamburger, so I'm going to treat it differently.
You're right. You're right there, but it sounded like you were saying that these things don't matter, and that is part of a diet. You do have to select your macronutrients. But
yeah, I mean, it matters a little, but it matters on that level, right? Like, you need to have a minimum minimum level of nutrition and get all the basic stuff. But beyond that, it doesn't matter. It's almost nothing to it. It's almost all genetics.
It's not. Yeah, you're right. I studied biochemistry. I didn't really look at nutrition much, but the macronutrients that mammals need are very similar across all the different genuses. Species, and the only difference is because of the way we actually digest things or the way we can synthesize things. So between humans, what we actually need, there's so little variance. You're right, a diet is pointless if you're going to go into specifics on like how many cherries am I going to have? Am I going to have this many carrots? No, it doesn't matter there. It might do slightly. There's small pieces of evidence saying that like cherries can be good for you, but yeah. I just want to like clarify that there is importance in making sure that you eat the right amount of calories, having a maintenance of that.
Nobody's disputing the massive threat that scurvy poses here. Okay, nobody's disputing that, and I want to avoid scurvy just as badly as the next person. That's why you have to occasionally eat a grapefruit.
Right.
I think more than anything, an exercise regimen will do a lot for you.
I agree.
I totally feel a lot better whenever I like walk or run in the morning.
Yeah, exercise is absolutely essential.
I get 0, but I agree, at least in principle, that it changes the way you feel. That's the thing. As somebody who has spent a lifetime abusing drugs and alcohol, and experiencing things that change the way you make you feel, and things that don't, like getting bad drugs that don't work, right? That's why I think of this whole dietary thing. It's like a bad drug doesn't work. It's there's this claim that it changes the way you feel, but you don't actually change the way you feel. It doesn't matter what you eat.
Well, if you ate all of your sugar in one dose, that would make you feel pretty awful. So I'm guessing you're not suggesting that. Anyway, I'd just like to clarify.
Okay, I will clarify. Let me clarify too. Make some exceptions here.
Okay.
Number 1. Yes, too much sugar can make me feel sick. And I agree that sugar is a unique part of food that operates a little differently if you have a lot of it, right? That's why people get diabetes, that's why they need insulin and stuff like that. Number 2, if I drink too much coffee and smoke too many cigarettes, I'll start feeling kind of nauseous. So too much coffee is another thing that does impact how I feel a little bit.
Yeah. It's hard to say. I don't know, in mental health, when we try to deduce like how to heal someone or bring someone to like a holistic state or, work with them, you can't really do anything until they're off caffeine even sometimes, because it's like you can have, well, if you have any kind of substance abuse tendency mixed with like issues going on, then it's like almost everything's null and void until that's like squared away. So like nutrition, the biological component of your body is like so important for everything, for your brain running and for personality, like even keeledness, I guess. I've learned that big time in my life. So, but
I think an exercise regimen of some sort would probably be.
It's so essential to have a good exercise regimen. It's so natural for humans to exercise that for us to ruminate in our rooms, not moving around, it's terrible, detrimental for the body.
Well, I click with this hand, click this finger. I play the guitar.
Good exercise.
Play the guitar, I get 2 arms going. I sometimes play the drums, and I get all 4 of my limbs going at once.
oh, you play the drums? That's fun.
Yeah, they are fun. They're so much fun. I think it's fair to say that the drums are the funnest instrument to play. At least for me, as somebody who came to the drums probably last amongst the instruments that I have any experience on at all. But it's the one I've been working on lately. When I play, often will play the drums because.
Is that the norm for you, like throughout your life? Is like having lots of projects going, like even when you were young, like little kid?
Lots of project starts when I was a kid. I remember. Here's a story of a typical ENTP mishap. I was in the backyard. My older friend Dave, who's an ISFJ, I've since determined, I'm still friends with him now, decades later. But I had seen, one of us had seen, I think it was me, had seen this thing in school. Given the fact that the ages it ranged was almost certainly me, had seen this thing in school about Adobe, how to build Adobe houses, and that it involved getting some straw and some poop. Because it was cow dung that you used. But I didn't get the cow dung part. So he and I went around and collected dog poop from the neighbors' yards and got a bunch of grass and tried to make adobe bricks out of dog poop and grass. And we had a couple of them made, and my mom came out and she's like, "What are you doing? Oh my god!"
Did she at least applaud you? Did she at least figure out what you were doing, or was she like?
No, I told her. I explained it. I was like, "Well, we're making adobe. Mom, it requires poop. I learned this in school today." Not that kind of poop. It's disgusting when you think about it. We had like a little bit of mud, and then we take a dog poop and put it in there with some grass, and like mush it around with our hands and form a brick out of it.
I think there's in mental health there's a word for that. It's like fecal smearing and caprices and erases. I don't know.
Anyway,
Yeah,
my visions of an adobe house in the backyard never came true.
It would sound like shit, wouldn't it?
I'm pretty sure I was going to have an adobe house within a couple of days, but it never happened.
I guess if society always breaks down, you got an option.
But I mean, wouldn't that be cool? It still sounds like a cool idea to me to make
Shed hut?
to make an adobe house, like a little adobe
Dog
shed
shit
in the front
village.
yard or something.
Can we just make
Without
it out
dog
of
poop.
mud?
The new capital of the world.
What's that?
I said if the world ends, you could always build Dog Shit Village, the new capital of the world.
Ah,
Welcome to Dog Shit Village. That's my new venture, Dog Shit Village. I want to make an entire amusement park, which everything is made out of dog shit adobe.
I know.
And then the tunnel of odors. It's mostly just one long boat ride.
There's no emoji for poop. Where is it?
Oh, I have no idea. Okay,
All right,
so-
next topic.
I don't even know what the topic is here. We got a little off topic. We're talking about the ENFJ in general. So, for you then, let's talk about the shadow functions. Let's continue back onto the proper course here. In your sixth slot, you'd have FI. In your fifth slot, you'd have FI. Normally, that would be an ignoring function, which would mean you either don't think much about, aren't aware of, or don't value very highly your own feelings about things. But at the same time, you actually have a kind of a close relationship with it, that function, in the same way that I have a close relationship with NI, even though it's not my conscious even though it's not my conscious intuition, I still utilize it a lot, or I had to learn to utilize it more, I guess. At first, I think that we don't tend to use our fifth, but eventually as we go on in life, we use it more. What's your relationship with your own feelings?
Oh my gosh, it's definitely a love affair, of course. ENFJs sometimes will have this whole kind of like we can appear kind of egocentric, and then sometimes people say, well, you have charisma, or like I think there's different types of ENFJs. There's people that have achieved balance and they know how to lead groups and they know how to speak clearly, and they have other people's best interest at heart, but then there's other people that are more self-serving. I think so. I've kind of graduated into the other, the better one. But I do think that when I manipulate people without knowing it with emotions, and I think that people aren't getting what I'm feeling, because I feel very strongly. I feel like I have so much passion, I have so much energy, and I feel like I know that can be a lot to take for different environments. I grew up in a conservative environment, so not to say like, oh, like I'm constricted or anything like that. I'm actually super empowered in my role right now, but I just feel that I like being appropriate. I like having to take it down a notch. I like being able to like switch modes. It gives me something to do to pour that energy into, and kind of like, it's like if I had a glass of water, it would be like pouring it into like a bunch of cups that like, are like shaped or something. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's like grooving with other people, getting into their groove.
You like being appropriate.
Yeah, because it's fun, and I feel appropriate doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, I need to be appropriate. Like, if you're with casual people, then you're casual. But
Right. Yeah.
most,
Yeah.
like I'm always
You like
on
being.
time.
You like doing it right.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
I think it's funny that you say that you like being appropriate.
Yeah.
Probably. No, it's not a bad thing. It's that, I wonder how much is different between the INFJ and the ENFJ, but then also in between specific people. You know, you mentioned enjoying feeling appropriate or being appropriate with people. For me, I think it's more like a wanting to sort of be liked by people, but also not want to be like a burden and stuff like that. So it's like an appropriateness in a way. But I guess with me, there's less of an emphasis on like the socialness of it, and it's more I'm trying to look at the individual person. Like, are they upset with me right now? Am I making them feel better? Stuff like that.
I agree. I have a lot of INFJ pals, and I think that there's a couple of them that are in my that are colleagues that are fellow students, and there's some of them that are like I work with them like just loosely, but I feel like they come to me and talk to me because they really like genuineness, but they don't want to appear like they're seeking that out or something, or maybe they don't care. There's this like super genuineness about them, but also like an aloofness with other people in social situations.
Well,
is that right? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was feeling right now. I mean, when we figured out that you were an ENFJ, I found myself kind of switch modes. My first goal was to come here and just sort of talk about whatever the topic was, but then once we found out that you were an ENFJ and I sort of noticed the ways that we think similar, then my focus sort of shifted. Well, I want to pick her brain because I want to find out, you know, but basically I'm kind of I'm like understanding driven.
How do you do when you're alone?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's two. I don't know. I can either be good or bad. Sometimes I feel like I'm more like free to myself to emote, to think about things, to have space. I do need space at least once in the day, like to collect myself. I do meditation, I do prayer, I just take time for myself. So that's something that I had to evolve into. Like I never did that before. I think it's really, really valuable for me. I'm a big, like I tell the clients I work with and things that it's just like really, it helps a lot. I'm really enthusiastic about that. So I feel like you can have an empty space when you're alone, or you can have a full space. So you can feel like, or for me, I can feel like, oh shoot, like all these people are going, you know, we just finished lunch, so everybody's going back to their business. But I'm just going to be like, what am I doing? Like I feel empty like for a minute, like, oh no, where'd everybody go? And then other times I can feel like, get everybody away, like everyone get out, like I'm just gonna be, you know, in my space. And it's not that I'm so much. I know I just explained that like as if I was like, you know.
How do you feel about titles? Let me interject here. How do you feel about titles, and like, do you want a title like, you know, important director of CEO of? Are those things? Do those things matter to you? Do you want to drive around in a nice car? Do you want to have your successes in life publicly visible?
Like yes and no. I used to work a job where I didn't have a nice car, and it was really distressing to me because I felt like I was working really hard, and I just felt like I had nothing to show for it. And then, like later on, I ended up upgrading, and people will tell me like, I don't know. Sometimes I find my car twin, or someone else will say like, "Oh, that's cute. What is that?" Or how, you know, ask me a question about it. And I feel comfortable talking to them about it, but other times I'm like, I don't want you to look at me. Like, I don't like that, like, the fame-y kind of thing with, like, really nice cars. Like, I don't know, that you kind of get. But, I don't know. Yeah, I do. I feel like I've driven to achieve a little bit. But it's just because I feel like I know that when I want to actually start my own business. So it's more like entrepreneurial, and it's a service that I'll be providing. So I just feel like it's a way that I can do things right the way I want them, and I don't know, yeah. I want to make it work. I mean, sure.
Does somebody else have a question?
I was going to ask, with the car thing, you know, would you prefer to have a nicer car that didn't necessarily work as hard for, or would you prefer to have a less nice car that you found had some sort of a significant attachment to?
Definitely, like it has to have a nickname. I've named all my cars, and I like a Porsche, right? Like if I had to say, oh, that's my dream car, it'd be a Porsche, but it wouldn't just be the 911. It would be like it's the one that's like, you know, from wartime, something particular, but it wouldn't just be like because of that. It's because you know the significant relationship behind it, or the model, or you know. like how it was made and things. I like that. I like authenticity.
Yeah, I guess for me too, though. Do you know anything about Enneagram?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Do you know what your primary type is?
You know what? I don't know if I like it because I take it and I keep getting like different answers. So it's anywhere between like 3, wing 2 to like I don't know. Like I think the other one was 4.
It's less about what you score as, and it's more. Yeah. I think it's less about what you're scoring as. You kind of have to look at them. What I'm kind of finding out is it's more all 9 types sort of take place within a person in one way or another, or at least they can seem to. For me, I've had to look further back into my life to know which my primary type was, which I think it's a 4, because I can definitely see some of that more, romantic sort of thinking and sort of fantasy sort of thinking further back into my life. But the reason why I had asked that question with the car was because there might be something that I find authentic, and I might be like, oh, that's authentic, I want that. But even if I get something that I think is unique or something like that, I don't necessarily enjoy it all that much. And I was trying to figure out why that emptiness was sort of still there. And I think it's because something I need to grow and understand, like in relation to the fact that I have weak SI, which is like detail-oriented, typically considered like productivity work, stuff like that, but also tied to SE, but that's another point. I think.
Are you an INFJ?
I'm an INFJ.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. Sorry.
I think for me, the reason why I would enjoy something of less quality is because it's a weird thing where I like authentic and unique looking stuff, but I find what I enjoy more than things that are just aesthetically unique or authentic is rather the process that I got to get that thing. Because to me, that process of working towards something in itself is a unique and authentic experience, because it belongs to me. That car might go away, but the experience I had of working towards that car.
Yeah, definitely. So it's more like you're attributing a part of yourself to an object because it serves you in that way, like showing you every day. That's like a symbol of something you've. I mean, I guess it's hard to say it that way because you could interpret what I'm saying to mean like how people, status are complex kind of like things. And you guys were talking about barbarousness or something earlier. Like that can be an SE thing, or like that can be more of a different personality type kind of thing. I mean, anybody can feel that way, or should feel that way. I mean, you should. There's some extent you should feel that way. I think, like, to work for something and see the outcome of it. That's a good thing. That's a good. But like, I don't know.
Well, I think because I think it's one of those weird things where for me, introverted sensing is very weak. But I still find processes related to that. If I push through them, it's fulfilling. It's just that it's a source of contention for me because, I'm not sure how this would be for you. I think your last function would be extroverted thinking, so I'm not sure exactly how it would work. But I guess I'm not trying to shift the focus too much on me. I'm just trying to gain understanding how things differ for the ENFJ, because the ENFJ sort of strikes me as like it's like the NFJ that's built more for social graces and extroverted.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I will say, okay, so I've done a lot of group work, and then we have in my program I know they keep talking about school a lot, but I have all of them are like INFJs are counselors, and I'm getting my master's right now in counseling. But and so a lot of them are younger than me, but they say things like, "Well, I'm an INFJ, but I wish I was an ENFJ," and I'm the only ENFJ in that whole program. And so I mean, we have ESFJs, we have other people in it with me and ISFJs and things, but the INFJs always, like, I think that they're drawn to ENFJs this way, where they think that we have something that they don't, but like I think that
I don't. Sorry to cut you off. I'm not really I don't mean this to be rude or anything. I don't really want to be you per se. I'm comfortable with being an INFJ. I'm just attracted to the mindset of ENFJs because they have very similar functions, but they're sort of flipped, so it offers a different yet familiar perspective.
Okay, I hear you. Yeah. Oh,
I
I'm
think
sorry. I
it's
didn't
the same.
come across that way, but yeah.
What's that?
I
yeah.
think it's the same for INTPs and ENTPs. Like, I find that, like, with ENTPs, because I'm an INTP, it's familiar, but it's not identical, so it's a very pleasant feeling.
What about you, Barry?
Sorry, guys. I'm not. What's the question?
No, we were just sort of, we were just sort of, bantering back and forth. But Necro had mentioned from the INTP perspective, talking with like an ENTP, we were talking about it's like similar functions. So there's a familiarity with the functions, but because like the orders sort of flipped, it offers a fresh perspective. And he was saying,
yes, yeah. There's it's very easy to understand one another, but you're both focusing on the other function essentially. So I've kind of seen that the people that the people that I watch, celebrities, people like Stephen Fry, they always seem to be ENTPs, to be honest. So yeah, it's very easy to understand them, and they allow me to express my intuitions because they might not be as good as theirs.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I wonder if the people I watch, if any of them are like similar types, but maybe just flipped. Yeah, I wonder about that.
How are we doing with this episode? Is this a good stopping spot? I'm sorry, I had to take a phone call.
What functions have we done so far on the ENFJ?
I don't know. We
guys never.
We didn't really go down the line. I talked about FI. She gave me a lot of FI. She gave me a lot of talk about FI, but most of it sounded like FE, which is about what you'd expect, right? And then what would be next in the stack would be NE. So in your sixth function, then in your sixth slot, you'd have extroverted intuition, which means you actually use that a lot, generating possibilities. Which it makes sense now that I'm hearing you talk that you are displaying some NE style conversation, because it would be something you do a lot of, but you don't really recognize it, right? And you don't typically would think of it as being an important part of what you're doing is generating possibilities. You think of it as being sort of happenstance. Would that resonate with you, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, because I don't know how to talk about how I communicate. I don't know. I don't think about it. So
It just happens. Let's see.
Yeah.
Any of those more specifically, not just about how you communicate, but rather generating multiple possibilities about a certain thing. And when I'm hearing you talking, and I'm hearing you sort of dissect a given position and move from one statement onto another sort of line of thinking, like sort of side them up side by side, not really ever saying explicitly another possibility is, but just sort of doing it, sort of sliding into that. I think that's representative of sixth slot NE probably.
do you think that's normal? I don't know.
Well, Abraham's not as chatty as you, but he's not as fast talking as you. Let me put it that way. He's certainly as chatty, but he's not as fast talking. And so I would say that it depends on what works for you from an FE perspective, right? If you found that this modality of communication is what you developed over time, is probably because through the FE frame, you've been in an environment in which you said you grew up amongst NTs, right? NTPs?
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that would make sense then that your FE is going to direct you to master the modalities of those people around you so that they'll feel comfortable with the way you're communicating with them.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't know that until we just discussed that. So that's interesting. That's cool.
Other thoughts about TE, and ask her any questions for her about, I'm sorry, not TE, but NE in the sixth slot? We can
Honk.
move down to the next. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm more interested about her 7th slot SI and 8th slot TE. I'm just wondering about that dynamic.
Okay, yeah, so 7th slot SI, that would tend to say that you have difficulty with regularity in general, right? That you don't like things that require, like, I think it was maybe Barry who gave that great description of SI before, maybe it was Ken, I don't remember which one, where they talked about maintaining things over time. I thought that was a good description. So, is that your experience with SI? Do you dislike things that require maintenance, like washing the dishes, doing laundry, and all that kind of stupid ass shit?
No, I like it if I'm in that mode of like that's my main focus. But if it's like if I have time off and I don't know if I was a housewife, I guess I would do that. I don't know. And I like things being clean. I really do. So I don't know. It can be peaceful. Like I like that. I like the idea of cleaning. So I typically keep things up. Yeah, like it makes me insane. Clutter makes me insane. I'm very cluttery, but I like it makes me insane, and I freak out, and then I have to clean everything like down to the bones. So.
You said it makes you insane, but with that, is it more of like an entrapping sort of thing? Like you almost feel lured into doing that detail work, and then
Yeah. I think that I've had a lot of just adverse, like in different living conditions. Like I've lived with people, like over 5 people, and I've lived by myself, and I've lived with my family. I mean, and so just over time, I feel like I have to adjust to a rhythm. And when I lived on my own, I'm also like, I tend to like throw myself into what I'm mainly doing. So if it's not being at home, it's working. So I was at work all the time, and I'd work like 60-hour work weeks, and I'd come home and I'd just be like, I don't want to do anything, and then there'd be clutter. It'd just be like stacks of books and like psychology books and periodicals, and then like dishes and random clothes and things, and then I would just it felt like it was like I'm doing all this stuff. Like I know where everything is, and I put it all there, but I don't. I have to.
So afterwards, after you would do all that stuff, was there like any sense that maybe it wasn't as fulfilling as you thought it would be?
No.
You ever get that? No? Okay.
No. Because it's fresh and clean, and I just feel like I'm like, now I can invite people over to mess it up again.
Another SI component that sometimes is the other way that SI expresses is that somebody who's got poor SI is not necessarily going to be ergonomic. For example, a lot of times I'll find myself doing something in some stupid, uncomfortable way for a long period of time before making the obvious change, like put down a soft mouse pad so your hand will stop hurting, Eric. That's another example of SI failures. Do you experience failures like that, or are you pretty attentive to your bodily feelings at the moment?
I'm definitely attentive to my bodily feelings, but not like I don't know how to answer that, but like I like if I don't know. This is the first thing that jumps in my head, but like if I'm driving to someone's house and they tell me the directions, if I accidentally took the long way and then the next time I'm driving someone shows me the short way, I might end up taking the long way again. Or so like that's idiosyncratic, isn't it? Is that what you mean? Like
well,
you could make it better for yourself, but you don't really.
I mean, SI issues come up in a lot of different ways. I think that they can come up in a sense of feeling like your life's escaping you without you paying attention to it or without you making any sort of record of it. There's that feeling, a sense of nostalgia for a lack of nostalgia almost. Like I should be valuing this more heavily. I should be keeping track of what my life is happening, what's happening in my life. I should have family pictures and stuff like that. Like that. Those sort of thoughts of anxiousness about your own identity through time are also typical of SI failures.
Okay. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think about that.
Do you have a lot of pictures and stuff? I mean, see, it's weird with FE because you're going to have a lot of pictures of other people and yourself with other people. But what I guess I'm asking you is, do you have a sort of mental timeline of your own life, your own progression over time, where you've developed, where you hope to continue to develop, where you used to be, what sort of innocences of the past you wish you could recapture, stuff like that. Do you have that in your head? Very well developed?
I do have it in my head, but I don't think it's very. When I picture myself as a kindergartner, I think of myself as my own self now, and is that what you mean? Like, I feel like I'm still the same person.
That's some crazy bad SI right there.
I don't know.
But what's weird is that you're not displaying a lot of bad SI traits. I think you've developed a lot of coping mechanisms for SI in the 7th slot, and you probably don't display a lot of the external world harms of it, and that's naturally going to happen with somebody who is interested a lot in how others perceive them. I think those individuals are going to manage things that necessarily impact perception better than they might otherwise. For example, I might have SI in the 4th slot, but if I had FE or something up higher than TI, then I probably would keep the place neater because I'd be more worried about people's perceptions, regardless of my bad SI, you know? So I think that's one of the countervailing influences. But when you're talking about your memories, well, that's not something that's publicly perceivable, so it's probably going to be more revelatory there, perhaps.
That's pretty cool. I have to think about that a lot more, I think.
Any other thoughts on that, or you weren't ready to move on to SE, or what? Is SE the last one? No, I'm sorry. What's your last one? That would be, TE. So, according to socionics, TE would be your role function, and that would mean that you'd actually do a lot of your work in life by coming up with protocols and things like that, and algorithms, algorithmic kind of work, which it sounds like you may be exactly what you're doing. You're doing sort of mental health assessments, stuff like that.
Yeah, I do. Currently, on my internship, I previously I had a caseload of clients, but then we got eaten up by a bigger company, so now I'm kind of like lost in the internship space, kind of taking assessments. That's what I do. But I'm not focused on that, on that assessment issue. That I'm still kind of learning that, but that's something that like my professor's taught me. He's an INTP, and he's like very very clear on that. As far as you're talking about algorithms, like picking up a pattern of relating to somebody to get information out of them, or to assess them, whether to help them or to categorize them. But I think I don't prefer that. I prefer one-on-one counseling, talk therapy, and I prefer just a lot of different theories.
Okay, well, let me ask you about your one-on-one talk therapy counseling approach, because one could think of it in two different ways, right? And you could think of it as a TE or a TI kind of a way. The way that I approach a Talking with Famous People episode, which obviously is not mental health counseling for anybody, but is very TI, which says, here's a topic, let's explore it. TI with NE, basically. But if I were going to do a mental health counseling session, I'd try to have more of a TE framework, but I'd still want to have, I'd be very comfortable with the person directing, I'd be very comfortable with tossing aside whatever initial thoughts I had and going with whatever the person was telling me, right? So my question to you would be this then. With TI in the 4th slot and TE in the 8th slot, you're mostly going to be running this thing according to your FE. But is your external framework, your thinking framework, one where you say, here's what I want to get accomplished in this session in general? Or is it one where it says, here's what I want to understand?
Both simultaneously. I think it's really interesting you're saying that, because I didn't want to get into that's like the secret stuff, that happens in session. That's like there's a start and there's an ending. And you definitely have people who are ill, people who, normal people, when they speak their mind, they want to talk. So you kind of always have to bring it back to the objective of the session, and there's always, a goal. There's always a goal.
There's always a goal.
Yeah.
It's
I
to
don't
it's to decide which stamp to use, crazy or not crazy, right?
know.
No.
Well, everybody's got a little bit of something, you know.
Or,
What's normal? You tell me.
I don't know. It's hard to say. But certain kinds of abnormal are easy to say. That's the tricky thing about that question, right? Okay. Any other thoughts on any of the ENFJ's mysterious cognitive function stack of enigmas? That's already a long video. Let's see. It is 55 minutes. That means it's time to stop this video and start another one.